So I don't watch a lot of TV these days. I especially don't watch a lot of like late night, you know, late night talk shows, those kinds of things. I have not really followed any of those in a while. But that is why I'm like a week late to this party. But I found out that Lilly Singh has her own late night TV show now, like the same slot that Conan O'Brien used to have. And honestly, I don't remember what network it's on. It doesn't matter, but it's on a major network. I don't follow Lilly Singh necessarily. I'm not like a big fan of hers or anything. I don't dislike her either. She's just a person. But she's a YouTuber. She grew up in the YouTube space. She kind of grew out of that in the recent years. I know she's doing a lot of like touring and live shows and that kind of thing. So she kind of developed her own brand and her whole entertainment ecosystem around that, and good for her. And now she's got like a broadcast network late night talk show. And first of all, big deal that it's a woman in the first place. There's hardly, actually, I guess Samantha Bee was the only one that could really claim that, but even she was on Comedy Central, which was, no, she was on TBS. That was a smaller cable network. So one of the major broadcast networks, I think, unless I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, first female to do that, which is awesome. First Indian American to do that. Definitely first Indian female. And first person from YouTube to really get that kind of presence on a major broadcast network. When I found this out, it really occurred to me like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal for her, clearly, and for everybody. But I mean, like, for YouTube. And I started thinking about it, like, it probably shouldn't be too surprising. I mean, a lot of really big celebrities came from YouTube. Justin Bieber was from YouTube. We don't like to talk about him too much. But it's just, it makes me sit here and when the whole broadcast thing and the late night talk show, like a YouTube personality having an actual late night talk show on a major broadcast network is a big deal. And it just, I was thinking about it earlier. It's like, has YouTube grown up? Have we arrived in a way? It might be too early to say that. Some people might argue that it arrived a long time ago. There's a buddy of mine named Dan who lives in L.A. We went to college together. We were both film school nerds, and he graduated and went off to L.A. and has been working out there for a while. For a long while. He edits sitcoms. He edited My Name Is Earl back in the day. He edited one recently that was called Downward Dog, which unfortunately didn't last very long, but it was a really great show. I'm super proud of Dan and everything he's been able to do. But I was out there one year for VidCon, and he came out and we had lunch or dinner or whatever, and we're hanging out and talking, and I kind of made the joke about how like he was working on big network sitcoms and I was doing YouTube, and he, man who worked on broadcast shows, was like, "No, dude, that's the future. What you're doing is the future." And I was like, "Wow, that's one way of looking at it." I kind of shrugged it off, like, "Oh, that's very nice. You didn't have to say that." But I think it's pretty telling that somebody who works in the industry sees it that way. He definitely understands the nature of the broadcast industry, the pilot season. Like, that's where he gets a lot of his work, is editing pilots for pilot season, and so and he's not the only one I've heard say this. I've heard other people say this too, that like YouTube is kind of where things are going, and online content in general is the way things are going. And I mean, I can attest to the fact that you can do very well on YouTube monetarily and in terms of influence and reach and everything. I'm not saying that necessarily for myself, but for other people that I know in this space and everything. And I don't know, it's just kind of, I don't know what a tipping point is in terms of where YouTube goes from here, but I every once in a while a thing like this happens. A YouTuber now has her own, hello Jake, a YouTuber now has her own late night talk show on a broadcast network. That is a big deal. Is this a tipping point? Is this the point where people kind of go, "Oh, YouTube has arrived"? It's interesting. And we also talk a lot these days about how, like, everything is going to streaming services, and it's basically cable all over again, except it might actually be worse because uh, this was brought up in a thing that I did that will be coming out soon. I can't say anything about it, but you have to ask if it's actually worse than when cable was dominating, because with cable at least you only paid one provider. You paid one cable provider and you got all these channels and stuff. Now you have to pay separately for each one of these different things. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I get a new debit card in the mail, because the last one expired or whatever, now you have to go and update all of those. You get an email for every single one of those services that are like, oh, we can't process your payment request, that whole thing. Whereas with cable, you only had to pay one thing, and then you got 87 channels that you had no interest in watching, and then they turn into garbage over the years. But I kind of wonder if there's going to be somebody that comes along, and maybe this already exists. If it does, tell me down below. But I wonder if something's going to come along that sort of bundles all of the streaming services, so that like you pay one price to one provider that then gives you access to Hulu and Disney Plus and CBS All Access and Apple TV Plus Max or whatever all they have, and YouTube Premium, and I like all of them, Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of those things. Like, what if there was like an aggregator basically that you paid this one provider and it gave you access to all these, and you can just go through and select and pick and which ones you want to pay, and then you pay one monthly payment to this one service, and it gives you access to all those streaming services. I think that is inevitable. If it's not already out there and somebody isn't already working on it, that's got to be an inevitability eventually, because people are not going to continue to pay more and more and more for more and more streaming services, which we're being forced to get on now. Because if you want to watch this show, you got to pay for that service. If you want to watch this show, you got to pay for that service. And this is, you want pirates? You want piracy? This is how you get piracy. People are like, piracy is already trending upwards. There's already more people going to torrents and stuff like that, because if you make it more difficult for people, there's always that option for them, and they will go back and do it. I made a joke on our Ludicrous Future podcast yesterday that it was a joke, but this is a really true thing. I'll repeat it for you just in case you didn't see it. But there's an old movie. This is a very rambling video. I hope you guys enjoy it. There was an old movie that had Michael Keaton in it. It was called Johnny Dangerously, and it's a hilarious spoof of like gangster movies. It's set back in the 30s, and he plays this gangster, and it's a really funny movie. And it's one of those movies that I watched when I was a kid, and it's just like, it just puts me in a happy place to see it. So anyway, about a week or so ago, I was hanging around downstairs. I actually had a free minute, and I just felt like watching it. I felt like watching it. So I went to Netflix. Of course, it wasn't there. It wasn't on Amazon Prime, and it wasn't on Apple TV or the Apple Movies or whatever their app is called now. I have an Apple TV, and it wasn't available. It wasn't available anywhere streaming, and I was like, "How is this possible?" And then I remembered I do actually have the DVD. I kind of forgot that DVDs are a thing, and I remember sitting there thinking, I was fully ready to pay $14, $15, whatever it was going to be, to buy this movie from a streaming service, as opposed to just getting up and walking across the room and grabbing the DVD and putting it in the DVD player. I am that lazy. I am that level of lazy. I was willing to spend $15 so that I didn't have to get up off the couch. But that's the thing. That's how lazy people are. And I think if you make it harder for them to see all the shows that they want to see and to get all of the streaming services that they want, the harder you make it, the more likely they are to be like, you know what, it's actually less trouble to go torrent this TV show or movie or whatever and pirate it. It's actually easier to do that than to sign up for all these different things. And if you could aggregate it all and have one service that put it all in one place, I think people would gravitate to that, because I think people are inherently lazy that way. That was a very roundabout way of getting to a lot of different subjects, but it all started with the whole Lilly Singh thing. And for what it's worth, I know she doesn't watch this channel. Very few people do, even people who are fans of my big channel. But congrats to her. I haven't had a chance to catch any of them yet. For all I know, it's garbage. I mean, it might be terrible. I don't know. But it feels like a big moment for YouTube that somebody that came from YouTube is now hosting a major network show. And it's a big thing for women and the Indian population and everything. So anyway, good for her. Congrats. I hope that we see some more of this in the coming years, and I'm glad to see that YouTube is really a platform where somebody can grow an audience and develop into something that big. Because I got to be honest, like that was a big motivation for me to do this in the first place. I've talked about it many times. I was a filmmaker. I'm still a filmmaker. That's where my heart is. That's what I love to do. And it's been a little discouraging that there haven't been more filmmakers come out of YouTube. There have been some musicians and comedians and that kind of thing, and that's great. I guess that's a start. But it's always been a little, I don't know. Sometimes I wondered if I was like just approaching it the wrong way. Like it wasn't going to really pay off for me because YouTube is, there hasn't been a lot of people that have come out of YouTube that have done that. This gives me a little bit of hope, and maybe that's why I gravitated toward that news a little bit. But anyway, just sharing it with you. It's interesting to me. Maybe it's interesting to you. It's Friday. I've been a little bit sick this week. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. Actually, in that podcast we recorded yesterday, this is super embarrassing. I started snorting. I was like doing that kind of thing, like right into the microphone, and I thought that I had muted it. See, here's the thing. When I record the podcast, I have three things going on at once. I've got Zoom, which is the video conferencing thing, so I can see the other guys, and that's what you see on the YouTube channel. We actually stream it to Discord so that our Patreon supporters can follow it live and actually interact with us. So that's kind of fun. But so there's that. And then there's Audition, Adobe Audition, which is a recording software. So that's what I actually record the audio on, and that's what gets used in the podcast because it's just cleaner and it sounds better. That's what I'll do. Anyway, so I muted it, but I muted it on Zoom and not on Audition. So I realized this morning that like it's totally on the podcast. It's like right there. Like it cuts away to somebody else's screen and they're talking about, the other two were talking about something, and I'm just sitting there like you know, and it's all there. So good for me. Anyway, I've been a little under the weather. Haven't felt great. My voice is a little strained, a little sore throat, drainage, all that, but I'll survive. I went and had dinner with a buddy of mine named Mark last weekend, and he's got 2 kids, so of course I immediately picked up the plague, so that's what's going on. But I'm all right. Anyway, rambling now. Hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you have a good weekend coming up. And yeah, looking forward to the Starship announcement tomorrow. I'll be following that. I don't know what time it is, but we'll be talking about that later, I guess. Anyway, love you guys. Thanks for sticking around as always. And I don't know how to end this, so I'll just say goodbye. Take care.